Okay, so I feel like there's things that I want to make sure I have right about family history. For example, can you tell me about your grandparents and your great-grandparents?
Well, I can tell you about some.
Okay.
On my mother's side, my grandparents were Paul Villery and Louise Bouligny. Anita Bouligny. I'm sorry, Anita Bouligny.
The Romeo and Juliet couple, right?
That's right. There were the Villerys and the Boulignys were at loggerheads apparently until they got married, and it was sort of a deal that Hatfields and McCoys had decided they would come together and stop fussing, from what I understand.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole story, I'm not really. I'm sure if my mother were here, she could tell you a whole lot more. But Paul Villery was the grandson of the first governor of Louisiana.
The first native-born governor of Louisiana, right?
I don't know if he was native born. Now that come to think of it,
Jean-Jacques Villeray.
Jacques Villeray.
Jacques Philippe, right?
Jacques Philippe Villeray. That's right. And he owned plantations on the West Bank mostly, but also in Chalmette.
Okay.
The Villeray plantation, which gives rise to the story of one of his children when the British were coming, running off.
Gabrielle, right?
Gabrielle, running off to warn Jackson and his troops that the British were coming. The British were coming, and apparently he had to kill his dog because his dog was barking as he was hiding in a tree. He was observing the troop movements, and so the dog was wanting attention, and he got it in the worst kind of way.
Poor dog. Yeah.
So I have a memory of one of our ancestors being one of the first women in New Orleans to own a car. Do you know anything about that?
I know nothing about that.
Okay. And I thought she had some kind of connection with Mexico.
I couldn't tell you. I have no idea what.
Okay. I met a woman at our house that Graham invited over who had a Cuba connection, who taught Spanish. What is the Cuba connection? I'm trying to remember what that was all about.
I sure don't know. This is one of those things I couldn't help you with that.
Oh, okay. But Graham wanted me to meet her. I think they used to visit in Louisiana with the Villerys or some branch of the family until the Revolution. And anyway, she and I remember having a conversation about language teaching because she would teach Spanish.
I know who you're talking about. I know who you're talking about, but I can't remember the name of the family. But I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. If you think of it, it would be nice to know. I remember meeting her, but I can't remember her name. Tell me about your great-grandparents on your dad's side.
My great-grandparents. Well, I barely knew my
Or
grandfather.
grandparents, yeah.
I barely knew my grandfather LaPere.
Uh-huh.
I was very, very young when he died, like 5 or 6 or something like that.
And your grandmother was already dead?
Grandmother was already dead. She died shortly after Gramps was born.
That's right. She's the one who enforced the French in the family, right?
Correct. And so when she was gone, they reverted to the English that they were speaking in school, pretty much around the house. And everybody knew fluent French, all the children in that family, except for my dad, who did not get as much immersion in
Right.
that. Now he
Was he younger?
He was the youngest.
he was the youngest,
Okay.
and so though he could understand French, he was not a fluent speaker.
So there were 11 children in that family, right?
That is correct. Yeah.
So you have Felix Henri, you have Olga Marie, you have Alma, and I think her middle name was Marie also.
No, August. You remember Angeline?
That was Tonodille's.
Angel.
That
Was
was-
it Tonodille's middle name?
Yes, because I
Okay.
thought I was naming Abigail for Olga, but I ended up, it wasn't was it Tonodille who was the
Tonodille was the Sacred Heart nun who had been
the head,
the head over there at the Rosary for years.
right?
And then she became the head over at Grand Coteau, which they have a school there too.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I think she had been earlier in her career in St. Louis.
What was Tonodille like?
She was a tough one. She was sweet, but you know, she's tough. She
Yeah.
had to be tough.
Yeah.
Very, very matter of fact, very no nonsense sort of person.
Okay.
And I remember, you know, when I went off to be a Jesuit,
Mm-hmm.
I was at Grand Coteau at the time, which was the Jesuit seminary, and I knew right away this was a bad idea. But I had been very friendly with this Jesuit priest who was a Jesuit, Father Rojero, and he had convinced me that I should give it a try. That he thought I was priestly material.
Right.
So I didn't have anything particularly to do after graduating from high school, so I thought, okay, I'll go try it. But boy, it was just the most culturally, spiritually, in every way, I knew this was not for me. I missed women, for one thing. And then when I went to confession, one time told this old Jesuit priest, you know, I was having impure thoughts. He said, about men or about women? And I said, okay, I'm in the wrong place.
Did you see Tonodille when you were over there?
Well, that's when, you know, when I decided to leave, they shipped me over to talk to Tonodille.
Ah.
And she tried to talk me out of it. She said, just stick it out for a year. Try it, you'll like it. I said, Tonodille, this was a mistake. I'm sorry, but I let the family down, but this is not for me.
Good.
So anyway,
And here we are.
Here we are.
but she was pretty tough. You know,
Was she mad at you?
I think she was disappointed,
Yeah.
and I'm not sorry I went. I learned a lot about the Jesuits,
Yeah.
and I know what's wrong with them now.
What do you think is wrong with the Jesuits?
Well, first of all, a lot of them are homosexual, but the second thing is that they think way too much of themselves. Their intellectual abilities and so forth, and they're not like Francis of Assisi,
Right.
modest, to a fault.
Right. So,
Now, I'm not saying they were always that way.
right.
I think in the early years of the Jesuits, it was quite a different thing. But they're very disciplined in the beginning. But they were way too much in the world, seems to me.
But weren't they like whipping themselves and things?
Yeah, asceticism was a big deal.
Asceticism, yeah. So in what sense are they in the world?
Well, they loved to be invited to parties. There was a Jesuit who was treasurer of the province, and he ate lunch every day at Antoine. I mean, he was unbelievable. That's for the good speed. So he was also the spiritual advisor for the fraternity that I was in,
Ah,
the Beggars.
okay. So we have Ton Odile, Ton Alma, Ton Olga, Gramps. Is Ton Coco?
Toncoco, Uncle Fanon.
Tell me a minute, just give me a brief summary of what you know about Ton Coco and what your impressions of her were.
Oh, she was another tough nut.
Yeah, I remember when we took her with us somewhere, and she thought Jim's hair was too long, and she started pinching Mom. What's the matter with his hair? And she's like, would you quit pinching me? Why are you pinching me? Because my son's hair is too long. She was pinching Mom.
Well, she was a grade school principal at Holy Name and also in Redemptorist, which used to be down in the Irish Channel.
Right.
And then she was the administrator of the hospital over there, Mercy.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody's trying to get me.
Do you want me to stop the tape?
No. It's fine.
So you knew her all growing up. She was here.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And so Toncoco, as I said, was a real tough nut. But, the whole family had a certain steel in their spine.
Right. I was kind of scared of Tanaga and Tanama. And they were the soft ones, right?
Yeah, probably the mildest of the pairs was Uncle Fanon.
Really?
He was just a sweet guy and very competent in what he was doing. He really was an engineer, and he developed the shrimp peeling machine from the ideas that J.M. had.
Okay.
So they
J.M.
worked
was
together.
who? His father?
I'm sorry?
J.M. was his father? Fernand's father?
Yeah, well, J.M., my grandfather, it was...
Was J.M.
Well, there are two J.M.s. There's James Martial, who was my grandfather.
Right.
And then J.M. Lepere, who was my first cousin, was the father he was the guy who had the idea of the shrimp peeling machine.
And whose son was he?
He was Emil's son.
Okay, so that's another.
Emil married a gal from Huma.
Okay.
And so Terrebonne Parish, and her family owned a seafood packing plant,
Okay.
which Uncle Emil wound up taking over, essentially. And it was in it was in that plant, that packing plant.
So it was J.M., Emil's child, who had the idea for the shrimp peeling machine.
Correct.
He's the one who stepped on the shrimp.
Correct.
And it was his uncle Fernand who
Correct.
developed the machine.
Who, with J.M.,
With J.M., okay.
developed the machine.
Okay, so we've got, who have we not mentioned from the Lapierre side? We have Felix, Tanama and Tanama, we have Odile, we have Coco, we have
Then you've got
Fernand,
Louise Waldo.
Louise Waldo. I remember her.
Another very tough customer.
But she wasn't a sister, was she? She wasn't a religious.
No, she was not a religious.
Didn't she
was
marry?
married,
Yeah.
and she had several children.
Okay.
One of whom used to be a Jesuit priest. In fact, he was a missionary to Ceylon at the time.
To where?
Ceylon, which is no longer Ceylon, it's
Right. Sri Lanka, maybe?
Sri Lanka. Anyway, he was a missionary there for years, and he just got out of the order, became a psychologist.
Now, didn't we have someone who was in French Guyana? A priest or a missionary over there?
No, not that
No?
I'm aware of.
Okay.
Now, from my mother's family, her brother, Paul Villery, who became a Benedictine priest, he was for a while a missionary in Guatemala.
Oh, in Guatemala, okay. I thought we had someone who was in French Guyana. Okay, so have I gotten all 11 yet? Who are we
Let's see.
missing? Andre, are we missing?
Andre, it was Pierre's father.
Right, the infamous Pierre. And we talked about Pierre last time.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, he's now deceased. He died 2 or 3 months ago.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Did you go to the funeral?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So Andre, and he's the one who married, and Pierre, he married someone who already had children, right? And
All
he,
right. Andre, yes. So it was a very complicated family. His wife died. He was married to Corinne Robin, R-O-B-I-N, and they had several children together. One of whom died he was struck by a car, and he was apparently not all there anyway. But so there was Pierre, there was his sister Elise Lapierre, who became married to Dr. Connolly.
mm-hmm.
Then there was Emily Lapierre, who married Forrest Collins, and who else? That was it, I think. But then, many years after his wife died, Uncle Andre married oh my goodness, I'm having a Biden moment.
Don't run for president.
There seems to not matter.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm trying to think for a first name, but last name is Fenner. Oh shoot!
But she
I
had,
know her name, but anyway, she had children by her first marriage.
right.
And
Was she a widow?
She was a widow, and so she had several children by her first marriage. One of whom wound up marrying Pierre.
Right. So
the
they were
wedding
in this,
invitation said,
it was Marcia and Greg of the Brady Bunch falling in love, right? And didn't Uncle Andre
see,
throw?
I never watched the Brady.
Well, it's the same situation. It's
Yeah,
you know,
okay.
her kids, his kids. But and Uncle Andre threw him out of the house when he realized that they were falling in love, right?
Well, he sent him off to school, yes.
He sent him off to school, got rid of him. I bet he came back and married her. What was her name, the daughter?
Well, there were. This was the problem. They had two Elise Lepers. One of them was Elise Leper. Elise Leper Connolly, and then Elise Fenner
LePere.
who.
So he
because-
adopted the children, or no? He
no,
didn't.
he
adopt
didn't. But Elise Fenner Leper became a Leper when he married.
when she married Pierre. Okay. All right. So who are we missing now? I still only have like 8. See, Uncle Fernand,
Well,
Felix Henri, Tanaga and Tanama,
Coco.
Coco, Odile, Andre, Louise Waldo.
The sweet guy.
That was Uncle Fernand.
oh well, then there was
Who is
Uncle Jean
Uncle Jean.
and Uncle Martial.
I don't know anything about them.
Uncle Jean was a Jesuit priest,
Okay.
and he became treasurer of the province at one point.
Did he eat at Antoine's every day?
He did not. He was the most mild-mannered person you have ever met. Just
Okay.
an absolutely ideal, modest person. And then there was Uncle Martial, who was a Jesuit brother. He had been an aviator and had delivered mail in Alaska.
Really?
And he crashed in the wilderness in Alaska and was there for several days and managed to survive until they got somebody to go get him.
I don't think I've ever heard this story.
And he decided he would give his life to the Lord, and he became a Jesuit brother, not a Jesuit priest. And the Jesuit brothers were doing more practical things like building stuff. And, you know, he was very big at Jesuit High School in Dallas in
Oh,
terms of facilities, management, all that kind of thing. But Martial was, again, a very humble fellow. A very...
now did you talk with either one of them when you were thinking about being a Jesuit?
No, I didn't, actually. I don't
Okay.
think. I don't remember talking with them. They probably were not available.
I think we're still missing someone.
Let's see.
Woody is his sister.
You counted my daddy.
Yeah. Felix. Let's do the boys first. Felix, Andre, Martial, Jean,
Fennel.
Fernand. Were there 5 boys?
I don't remember.
Okay, let's do the girls. Louise, Odile, Tanaga, Tanama, Coco. Still missing someone.
Okay, well, if you had told me you want to talk about all these family, I'd brought my family guide. I mean, I have that at home.
Okay, I've
Yeah.
never heard this story about Martial. That's fascinating. Okay, well, and then I know that Mama had Mimi, who used to live down the street from us, and who landed on Normandy, right? And made contact with the. Did she come?
Hello? Political, don't worry about it.
Okay. So Mimi lived down the street from us on Booth Street. She was my great aunt, and she had a bet with her brother about who would land on Normandy first, because he was in the army.
You talking about Andre?
Andre
He was
your
in the OSS.
So you had an Uncle Andre on both sides.
Correct. And
The OSS was like a secret service.
it was the forerunner of the CIA.
Okay.
So yeah, he never could talk about what he did in the war,
Mm-hmm.
but he spoke French fluently,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think he was involved with the French underground. And the reason I think that is because he, after the invasion of Normandy, Mimi was setting up canteens for the troops.
With the Red Cross.
Was
she in the Red Cross? No, she was.
I don't think she was with Red Cross. I think she was with the OSS. Well, not the OSS, the service organization.
Oh, the women's, the USO?
USO. Anyway, she came aboard at Normandy. She came into France with, I think, the third wave.
Wow.
And then set up the canteen and all this stuff. And she was there at the canteen, and Andre walks in.
Wow.
Just says hello.
Did he know where she was? Or was it just
Apparently,
coincidence?
the OSS knows everything.
They know everything.
They
so.
know. So
That's right.
Anyway, he's never talked about what he did in the war. Not to his children, not to his wife.
Wow.
We don't have any idea what he did.
And now we'll never know.
We will never know. He's deceased.
So there was Mimi, Andre, Marie-Therese. Who else was there in her family?
Okay, so then there were a religious, Marguerite.
Oh, Marguerite. I don't know much about her.
And she was a missionary sister of the Holy Eucharist.
Interesting.
And she was in the bayous, mostly, in Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
Bayou country.
Mm-hmm.
They're just ministering to the poorest of the poor.
Mm. Okay.
And then Uncle Paul, who was the Benedictine priest,
Mm-hmm.
and he was named after his father, and then I was named after his father too, because it was
a Paul Villery, was his father.
Paul Villery,
your grandfather.
and then Tita, my sister, was named after her two so I'm Paul Martial because the middle name of my Le Père grandfather was Martial.
Uh-huh.
And Tita was named after her two grandmothers, Anita, Louise. Louise was the name of my father's mother.
Okay.
Louise Minor was
So
her
she was a
maiden name.
minor. I was going to ask you what she was. Okay, that's where the minors come in.
Right.
Okay. All right. Okay, so I always heard that you fell in love with opera listening to Caruso at Tanagas and Tanamas.
Absolutely.
What is your memory? What are your earliest memories of music and of how you felt about music? And I know that you were not interested in the same kind of music a lot of your generation was interested in. Can you talk a little bit about
So in
that?
Arlington, I had one of those 78 Victrolas that you had to wind up,
Right.
and it was, they had a collection of 78s that we just loved to listen to. There was the Zampa Overture, there was the overture, the William Tell Overture, which of course we loved to hear.
Gallop
because we were-
around.
Because we were, we galloped around, we did Lone Ranger stuff, and because Lone Ranger was on radio
Right.
at that time,
Right.
same thing,
Right. Okay.
and of course lots of Caruso records.
Mhm.
So yes, we used to listen to that and just thrill. And when 45s came out, Tenalgatanam bought a 45 player.
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember sitting on the porch in Bay St. Louis or Waveland. They always rented a house in the summertime. And
invited the whole family?
listening to Ezio Pinza and Mary Martin sing South Pacific songs, Slam and chant at evening. It was amazing.
Uh-huh.
But always good music, always excellent taste. And so, no rock and roll or anything like that.
Let me ask you something about that, because South Pacific has a definite message against miscegenation. I'm not sure how.
No, it's not against miscegenation. It's in favor of.
No, because she marries a Polynesian. She marries a Frenchman who has two Polynesian children, right?
Yeah.
And she has all this prejudice growing up in Arkansas,
I know.
and she has to overcome it.
Correct.
So, isn't miscegenation?
Miscegenation is marriage between people of two different races. Yes.
Yes.
So it's an.
Oh, because miscegenation was against the law in Louisiana for
Yes,
a while.
it was.
Yes. So, and I think your parents believed in that, right? I mean,
Believed against miscegenation.
yes, they were against miscegenation.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. But they didn't mind listening to South Pacific.
They probably didn't know what the story was.
Yeah, I guess it's
The
not like.
music is beautiful, but
Yeah. Right. Well, yeah, you couldn't just pop in a movie like you can now, right?
no,
If you didn't catch it in the theater, you didn't catch it.
correct.
All right. You want to ask
Yeah,
some
so
questions?
what were some of your favorite performances by Caruso?
Well, of course, the recordings were of opera like Festa de Juba, Festa Juba, and the Canio, the clown, and La Donne Mobile and that sort of thing. All kinds of arias. And it wasn't just Caruso. I mean, they had sopranos too, and lots of overtures to operas like Welcome to My Shop.
So do you always loved classical music from the time you were little?
It was the only music really I heard.
Okay.
Except, I did listen to pop music. At that time, pop music it had melody, it had a message, we're talking about pop music sung by the likes of Perry Como.
Right.
Bing
Big band
Crosby,
kind of. Yeah.
and it was totally different from
Yeah.
modern music, modern rock.
Mm-hmm. Pop. Yeah.
Like bubblegum pop, which is, Britney Spears kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
which I can't abide.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so shallow and stupid.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, people would say the same thing about opera, that, you know, the plots, of course, are mostly ridiculous.
Yeah.
But the music is glorious.
Mm-hmm.
And when we started to listen, I listened to the radio, and they used to have Mario Lanza had his own radio program.
Wow.
He had his own TV program later, but you know, he did a lot of singing, and that's when I decided I wanted to learn how to sing.
Oh, okay.
Is listening to Mario Lanza and singing along with some of the songs.
Did people recognize, did your parents recognize you had a lovely voice from the beginning?
Listen, from the time I was, I guess, 7 or 8, my mother would make me stand in front of
Company?
and sing Ave Maria, usually.
How did you feel about that?
Fine, I was not a Protestant at the time.
I didn't mean about the Ave Maria. I meant having to stand in front of company.
You know, I generally, they always, you know, were very complimentary. He has a lovely voice. He has.
Yeah.
And so, you know, that was encouraging. You know, I won this little talent contest when I was in 8th grade
Oh.
in Covington. Or maybe it was 7th grade. I don't remember that much, but
What did you sing? Do you remember?
Because of You.
Ah.
It was a popular song by Tony Bennett
Yeah.
at the time.
Sing the first bit of it. Do you remember it?
I can remember the ending of it. Because of you, my life is now worthwhile, and I can smile because of you. That was another song that I sang as well. It's called If, and it was sung by Perry Como. If they made me a king, I'd be but a slave to you. If I had everything, I'd still be a slave to you. If I ruled the earth, what would life be worth? If I hadn't the right to you. Well, anyway.
What I wouldn't give to have a recording of you doing that in 8th grade.
Yeah,
You know, well, people didn't have cell phones.
Right. All right. Go ahead.
So that was sort of your introduction to sort of classical music in general?
Yes, and then I remember my parents took me to a performance of Level M when I was like about 12, 13 maybe. Can't remember, but I was just blown away. It was the most beautiful, affecting thing I'd ever seen.
Mm-hmm. And do you have any particular favorites from the opera repertoire or the classical music repertoire that are just really deeply stirring to you?
Well, I cannot listen to this day. I can't listen to Madame Butterfly without tearing up in this last act.
I got to see that back in like 2011, I believe.
Break your heart.
It's just, it breaks my heart. And so I love Puccini.
Yeah.
Puccini is my favorite opera composer by far. And, you know, the others are fine too. I'm not much of a Wagner fan. I fall asleep. It's just too long, too repetitive, too
many horns and breastplates.
That's right. Get on with it. That's what I want to say. I'm sure there are some people who just love Wagner. And to them, he's the epitome of drama. But I'm just not impressed.
Okay.
So, sort of on that subject, what were some of the authors that you read a lot when you were a kid? Like maybe, elementary school, middle school, and as a young man? What were some of the authors you read a lot of?
Well, I read a whole lot of the boy, I'm telling you, I'm really got Biden. No,
We're putting you on the spot. Definitely putting you on the spot. You can come back to it.
I did read all of the Lassie books.
Oh, Lassie.
Lassie
Okay.
Come Home and all of those books. I liked. I read Bambi, of course, and I liked the Hardy Boys. That's what I was trying to think of. The Hardy Boys.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read a lot of those when I was a kid too.
And so when I was in college, my senior year, I had a English professor who was really into P.G. Wodehouse.
I thought that was high school.
That was high school.
Oh, okay.
Senior year in high school.
Okay.
Desert.
Yeah.
Father Coco. I'll never forget because he used to read from his two favorite authors were Damon Runyon and P.G. Wodehouse, and he just wanted to give us. I mean, we were studying Shakespeare and all this kind of thing,
Right.
which was fine. But just for entertainment, he said, "I just want you to listen to this story." So he'll start a story by P.G. Wodehouse. And he'll dissolve into gales of laughter, and he can't carry on. So he'll hand the book to me or somebody else sitting in the front row and say,
Keep going.
he was having some, but I didn't quite get it,
Right.
but he was having so much fun. I thought, maybe I need to try that. So, anyway, that's how P.G. Wodehouse entered into
your life.
into my life and into yours as a
That's
result.
right. That's right. And Abby's reading PG right now. She's reading The Code of the Woosters.
Good.
And
We don't want her to be uneducated.
that's right.
And how did Trollope into your life?
Trollope was later on in life, and I think Trollope had a big effect on PG.
Oh, interesting.
Trollope is another person who knows exactly the right word to use to describe what he wants to say. And some people think he's a little tedious, and he can be a little tedious, but
Well, things develop slowly in his books,
yes,
because it's all about the psychology and the relationships and misunderstandings, and I mean,
Correct.
it's just so real.
yes,
It's like real life.
it is.
Everybody has this different perspective that's slightly different, and
Mm-hmm.
it always just strikes me how relevant it is.
You're absolutely right. His political novels, you could say it's about what goes on in Washington today. It's
yeah.
exactly the same kind of people
Yeah.
want to climb the slippery pole.
But you also had a love for poetry, right?
Not so much early in life, but later on. Now, for example, I have on my book table today, right now, and I'm reading just about every night some of the poems of Jerry Manley Hopkins, because I just love his poetry. But I can't say I read poetry very much. I don't, but when I'm in the mood for poetry, that's usually where I go.
And he was your senior project or senior
Correct.
paper.
I did my thesis on him.
Right.
At Loyola?
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Because he was an English major.
And so what were some of the biggest challenges that you went through as a young man before graduating college, but after sort of elementary school? What were some of the big challenges you had in your life? I mean, I would imagine, having, 10 odd siblings or some such would present its own set of interesting interactions.
Well, I tended to be the object of bullying when I was a young man.
I didn't know that.
Particularly, at St. Paul's College in Covington, when I was there, there was one particular bully who was not only bullying me, but he became violent.
Mm-hmm.
And he followed me on his bike when I was on my bike going home, knocked me off the bike and started a fight with me. Somebody just passing the car stopped him and
Stopped it?
stopped the fight. So I go home with a black eye or bloody nose, I can't remember what. And so my father went to talk to his father, and the bullying stopped. I think his father was just appalled at what his son had done. But anyway, when I was a freshman at Jesuit, there was another guy by the name of Zelenka, who later became a perfectly normal person. But for some reason, he just wanted to bully me. And I can't, because I was not in his circle or anything. He was an upperclassman. Right. He was like a junior when I was a freshman. But he just took a dislike for me and he was always teasing me and bullying me and all that kind of thing. I thought, this was really hard. So, when you're going through a lot of changes in your life anyway, it's a very difficult thing. And at that time, I was also realizing that I needed to have glasses. So I was wearing glasses, and I felt horrible anyway.
Right.
Being in at Jesuit High School my freshman year was just probably the worst time of my life in terms of, because I was always looking around the corner to see if this guy was going to be around to bully me.
Oh my goodness.
Because he was always doing that.
Yeah.
And, but it was also the strangeness of being in a very rigid environment. It was very militaristic. You had to go out and onto the parade ground. You had to march and get in line, all that, and yes sir, no sir, and have it was just a wooden
rifle.
A wooden rifle. It was not a rifle. It was just something that you.
I don't think they do that anymore.
They don't.
No.
They still wear uniforms.
Yeah, they do.
But you actually had a Marine Corps officer.
Wow.
It was affiliated with the Marines. There was a Marine Corps officer on duty there to
whip you into shape.
Whip us into shape.
So, how did Did the bullying ever come to the attention of the administration?
I don't think he ever did.
Okay, because I don't think that Jesuit is very
I think the
tolerant.
guy just got tired of.
Yeah,
Anyway.
but then how was after your freshman year? Did things get better?
Yes, things did get better. I was having a hard time my freshman year with Latin and with and particularly with algebra.
Mm.
The football coach was teaching algebra, and he was not a good teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would come home and my dad would try to explain things to me because teacher never really did. All he did was call us stupid ass boys, which of course we were.
You weren't any less stupid for him. He didn't help the situation any.
So anyway, I had a real hard time with algebra, but I managed to get through it with the help of my father, who remembered something about, and he could look at the algebra book and he could figure it out. And it didn't ever make any sense to me why it had anything to do with math. There's all these letters in it.
Yeah, right.
I don't understand. Why are the letters in there? Okay.
Yeah. It's weird. So's geometry. I couldn't
See,
figure out.
geometry, I did great at.
Oh, I
got
didn't
an A in
understand what it was
geometry.
about. I remember them talking about proofs. I'm like, what are they talking about? Proofs? What are we proving? This is supposed to be math. Why do we have to prove anything?
See, the logic of geometry,
Worked for you.
it made sense to me. Algebra never did. But, I understand you want to find out what value X is, okay, but gotcha.
Yeah.
But then why do you throw A and B in there?
That's right. So it sounds like your dad, between the bullying thing and between, and the math and all, it sounds like he was a supportive,
He was, yeah.
which to me is a little surprising considering how many kids he had.
I know.
Just the time he's working full time to have the attention and the energy to sit down with one of his many children at night and work on algebra. Good for Gramps. And to go see the dad and
Well, my dad was special. He really was. He was a great, great dad. And no such thing as perfection in this life, but
right. And he took care of you, huh?
he took care of all of us. He worked way too hard. And part of it is that he had a hard time, I think, not getting off into other things, but just to give you an example, he would walk down the street, and when my dad walked, he walked fast. He walked fast, he'd cross streets like crazy. And I was always just trying to struggle to keep up with him. But he would have his face in the crossword puzzle of the newspaper and would be working a crossword as he's crossing the street. I thought, this is not good.
Plus he's leaving his kids behind.
But he would focus in on whatever he was focused in on, and it wasn't necessarily work. So a lot of times he would come home, eat dinner, and then go back to work.
Really?
And which is not a good way, not a good thing.
He was a stutterer.
He was a stutterer. He went to a special place in North Carolina to get over his stuttering, and he made tremendous progress. But he stuttered really all of his life
Yeah,
if
I
he was
remember.
under stress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Was he bullied, do you think?
Was he what?
Bullied but for being a stutterer?
Yes, he was.
Yeah.
The kids in his school used to call him Fifi. His name was Felix, but
Oh, I didn't realize that was a negative nickname. I thought that was something the family called him. It was a mean nickname?
no, I think it was a mean nickname.
Okay. All right.
So who else supported you when you were a young man in these times?
Tonaga and Alma, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I got mononucleosis when I was in college. And so they took me in to get over the mononucleosis. And now I spent the whole summer with them learning how to type and dealing with mononucleosis, and also going to summer school at Loyola.
Wow. Mono is contagious. I guess
Well,
only
this
if
is
you
you kiss people, yeah.
Yeah.
As long as you don't kiss,
Yeah.
but
So
Oh,
it took you a while to get over it, huh? Because
it took me a while to get
it
over
can be
it, yeah.
debilitating. Wow. Tonaga and Snammer were something.
They were unbelievable. Just amazing people who just stepped up and helped out whenever everything was falling apart. They'd step in and help.
They cared for me way more than Mama ever did. As far as babysitting and,
Right.
all that kind of stuff. I always felt much closer to them because they were always the ones to take us. And they were something.
I was gonna ask about your experience in the Army. That was after you graduated from Loyola, is that right?
Correct. One of the things I did, both to avoid a draft and also to help pay for my undergraduate and law school tuition, was to join the ROTC. So, you had to take certain military subjects, map reading and all that kind of thing, tactics and so forth. But so I went through ROTC, and you had to make a choice of 3 Army units that you wanted to be in, and one of them had to be a combat thing. So you could make one of them either armor or infantry but so I put in 3. I didn't want to go into Judge Advocate Corps because that was a 3-year commitment. And I knew I already had a job waiting for me, and to go into practice of law. I didn't want to delay it because I thought maybe it'd disappear.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I wanted to go 2 years. So I put in 2 non-combat branches of the Army, and then infantry. Well, of course, I got infantry. And it wasn't my favorite thing to do, but that was the way it was. So went to Fort Benning for infantry officer training.
And where's that?
Georgia.
It was in Georgia. It's no longer Benning. It's something else now. Benning apparently was not politically correct. I don't know whether he was a Confederate or what, but anyway, it's no longer Fort Benning. My time in the Army was eye-opening for sure. One, I met your mother, because she had she had roomed her freshman year with the gal down the street
Mm-hmm.
on State Street where we lived.
Mm-hmm.
And so this gal said, you know, you have to look up Kay Lewis. She's such a sweet person. I said, okay, good. I like sweet people. So anyway, Jim Cappertz and I, Jim Cappertz, myself, and Tim Schaefer were in a study group through law school.
Okay. I remember Jim Cappertz vaguely. He's in California, right? Most of my time.
Yeah, well, he's deceased now. But anyway, so Jim and I were there, and Tim was in transportation course, so he was out in the great Northwest, Tacoma, Washington. And he got married to Judy upon graduating from law school. So I was not married yet, but I had been but I was dating your mother throughout the years that I was in the Army. Anyway, the first assignment I had was after you finish your training, then you have an assignment, and I was sent to Fort Dix, New Jersey, where they were training troops for the Army. And
For Vietnam, right?
well, at that time, yes, for combat service. And so I was the CEO of the commanding officer of a training company, which didn't mean anything because I didn't know anything about training. You just, when you're a second lieutenant, you know nothing. You know you're in charge, but you know the real person in charge is the top sergeant in the company, because he's been there a long time. He knows exactly what to do. All you do is say, "Top, what do we do now? What are we doing?"
Top. So a lieutenant.
Top sergeant. You don't call him sergeant. You just call him top.
Top. So the lieutenant, were you technically over him, or?
Technically, yes.
Okay.
I was officer corps, but actually,
Right, he was really the
he
one.
was really in charge.
That's interesting. So why didn't you get sent to Vietnam? Do you know?
Why didn't I? Just the absolute luck. I was in the in that unit for a while until I made first lieutenant, and then they moved me to courts and boards because they needed a courts and boards officer, and they knew I had a legal degree. So I became the commander of the courts and boards unit, and again, it's the sergeant that knows everything about how to go about it. And of course, I knew certain things. I had to study the Uniform Code of Military Justice just in my training.
Right.
But it was more in line with what I knew how to do. And
So that may be what kept you out of Vietnam, was your law degree.
yes, I think so. Anyway, I did a good job. Courts and boards, they gave me the Army Commendation Medal and said bye. So by that time I had married your mother.
Yeah, because Fort Dix was your first year of marriage, right?
Well, the first couple of months.
First couple of months.
We got married, and then we spent 3 months, I think, before I got discharged.
So you were in the Army when you got married,
Yes,
and but you got time off for your honeymoon and all that.
correct. I took a leave.
Okay. And we talked more about the Graham and all that, I think, last time.
Yeah, I have a quick question though. So what did romance look like for you back then? How did you pursue Kay, and how did you grow your relationship together leading up to marriage?
Good question. I was attracted to your mother very right away. I mean, she was very highly intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
She had a lovely personality, and she was just fun.
Yeah, she
to
was
be with.
fun. Yeah.
So, I as you know, I had a relationship with another woman back in New Orleans, and
Right.
didn't quite square that as well as I should have.
Out of sight, out of mind.
Out of sight, out of mind. Anyway, there was one, not my greatest moment, but Kay and friends of hers were going to New York to catch a plane to go to England,
Right.
and they also wanted to see the World's Fair. At the time, that's 64. It was the no, it wasn't 64. What was it? 60. What was it?
I was born in 66.
Yes. Okay, it was a 64 World Fair. And they were going from Georgia to
Lowestoft. Or
To-
to New York, yeah.
via New York, correct. So we took in the World's Fair, she and her friends, and took them to eat at the Four Seasons at the airport at JFK. And then, sent them off.
Daddy, who spent that summer in Lowestoft with Mom? I couldn't remember. Jim thought it was Diana, but it wasn't Diana.
It wasn't Diana. She did not go, she was not part of that group.
No, this was somebody from college, wasn't it? It wasn't Sandra, was it?
Sandra,
It was Sandra? Okay.
yes. Sandra, and then there was another gal too, but I can't remember her name.
Okay.
She's the one who put ketchup on her
steak. Forever immortalized as having put
Forever
ketchup
immortalized.
in the family. That's right. Poor girl. I'm sure she has a much more interesting personality than just the girl who put ketchup on her
At the Four Seasons.
At the Four Seasons. At the Four Seasons.
Yeah. This marchand de vin. Off. Ketchup.
Dad's never forgotten it.
She was not la cuisse de Jupiter.
Oh, Lord. There's a blast from the past. This is the kind of thing my mom used to say. Ce n'est pas la cuisse de Jupiter. Not the fly of Jupiter.
It's hilarious. I love that.
Anyway.
So I'm curious, how did you ask Graham out for the first time?
Well, when I showed up, it was on my birthday, and Tanaga and Janama had sent with me when I went off to the military, to Fort Benning, had sent a bottle of champagne with me, so to celebrate my birthday.
Very Tanaga and Tanaga.
Very Tanaga and Janama.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, Jim and I were in my little bug, and we go to Fort Benning, and so I tell Jim, I said, I've got this girl that lives down the street, wants me to look up a woman at Agnes Scott College, and so I said, well, fine, maybe she's got a date for me. And so we show up at Agnes Scott College, and I'm looking for Kay Lewis, and somebody says, oh, I know Kay, I'll go get her.
She's in the library.
So she's in the library.
And that was her friend who came up and said, you look awful. Go
Yes.
put on some makeup. What are you doing? She's like, I'm studying. There's a
What do
boy
I
here
need
to
to
see
look good for? There's this boy out there. I'm asking for you. It wasn't entirely because I think she knew that I was coming,
Okay, it was a
but
different
not
time.
that particular day.
Yeah,
and
right.
that particular hour.
Okay.
So anyway, so we make a date, and you know, first thing we say is, so Jim and I are staying in a motel, fairly seedy hotel,
Mm-hmm.
motel. You know, we're not picky.
Right. Right. And you were probably not flush either.
So no, we're not all that flush, but so we say, you know, to this girls, there was Kay and her roommate, one of her roommates, and gee, what's her name? Oh golly. Anyway, she was going to be Jim's date. So we say, why don't we go celebrate Paul's birthday? We've got a bottle of champagne, and we invite you to our motel room.
I'm sure they said, absolutely not.
And they
We'll
looked
get
at
thrown
each
out
other.
of Agnes Scott
They
College.
looked at each other and said, "Shall we tell them now?"
Or later. No Agnes Scott girl is allowed to go into a man's hotel
And
room.
nor can they drink any intoxicating liquors.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
Nope, not while they're in school, in session.
Yeah.
No intoxicating liquors. So, and certainly not going off to someone's hotel room. So, you know, we didn't think anything of it. It was totally innocent. Anyway, we started going out.
Yeah.
And but not a lot. And I spent Thanksgiving at Kay's house.
Oh. So before y'all were officially dating, you met grandmother and
Yeah,
granddaddy.
that's right. And so we, you know, kind of got together whenever I had to leave, and I could get out of there for the weekend
Mm-hmm.
if I wasn't officer on duty or whatever. So anyway, then I took, you know, when they were in England, I decided my sister Tita was taking her final vows in Rome at, you know, the Sacred Heart convent there. And so, you know, a lot of officers were doing this. They were getting space available because Fort Dix was right up against McGuire Air Force Base.
Mm-hmm.
So most of the time, you know, if we wanted to go to the officers club to eat, we didn't go to the Fort Dix officers club. We went to the McGuire Air Force Base because they had better food.
Uh-huh. Right.
And you could, as long as you were an officer in any branch,
Uh-huh.
you could
Hop
go
a plane.
wherever you wanted. So you could hop a plane at McGuire, but it had to be space available, which means you had to wait in the airport
Mm-hmm.
until they had space available for flight.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to Europe. And of course, you didn't know where in Europe you'd wind up because it all depended on what flight
Right.
was going. So I caught a flight eventually after spending about, I don't know, 26 hours in the airport. Caught a flight to Frankfurt.
Okay.
And then I bought a ticket to fly from Frankfurt to London. And there I rented a car, and like any idiot American young man, think,
Just
well,
Took
if
off.
I can drive on the right hand side, I can learn to drive on the left. It ain't that easy, and particularly if you've been without sleep for. I remember
2 days.
Yeah. So anyway, I was nearly killed, and also let's just put the fear of God in a few English people.
Lord have mercy.
And so here I was on this road going towards Lowestoft, and I thought, I'm going to die. I will never make it. And somewhere along the road there was this inn, and I decided I'm going to stop. And so I walked into the inn. You know, in England, pubs.
Right.
They're pubs, but they also have some accommodations. So I
Right.
said, do you have any accommodation for the night? And they say, no, we really don't. We're full up. I said, you'll be responsible for my death if you don't let me sleep on the floor somewhere. I don't care where. The broom closet is fine. And they did. They put me in just a storage room.
Okay.
And they put a
Cot.
cot on the desk, on the floor, and man, I was out.
Yeah.
Just like that. And anyway, next morning I popped back in my car, and again I almost get killed. But I made it to Lowestoft.
But you're a little more alert.
Everything works differently. You know that.
Yes.
Well, you were with me. No, you weren't.
Well, I was with you when we were driving in England, yes. As a family.
Yes.
Yes. We're not going to see that. Why aren't we going to see it? We were in the wrong lane. We don't know how to go
Wrong
back.
lane. If the
This is
windshield
before
wipers are on,
GPS.
if the windshield wipers are on, it means we're turning right.
That's right. Oh, that's
Okay.
funny.
Anyway, so I surprised your mother in the basement of the hotel there where she was working, and she was polishing silver. And so we did a little pub crawling and whatnot, and went sailing on the Norfolk Broads.
Mm-hmm.
And, we kind of fell in love. There you are.
Were you already in love, or did you fall in love there?
Yeah, I was pretty sure I was in love, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, your mother was not so sure. Anyway. But,
So, what was your first heartbreak, and how'd you get through it?
my first heartbreak. Oh, well, Teresa Simmons is definitely my heartbreak. But it was a very good heartbreak, because if I'd married Teresa Simmons, I'd be in big trouble.
How old were you?
I was in high school.
Okay.
Yeah.
And she broke your heart.
Oh, numerous times.
Wow.
Teresa Simmons was a flighty little thing, and she wound up marrying 3 times, but she, just was wrong for me.
Right.
She was the shiny thing, a little object that attracts you, and yet is not very good for you. So.
How'd you get through your first heartbreak? Did you get any support from your parents, or did you not tell them?
I don't remember ever talking to my parents about my love life.
Yeah.
Mostly what I had to do was fend off my mother's suggestions about, dating girls that are from a good family.
Right.
Yes, but she doesn't like me and I don't like her. So why are we even talking about good families? I mean,
Right. What did you love about Graham? You already touched on a few things. Actually, you kind of answered this already, that she was intelligent and funny and fun.
Sweet.
Yeah, and sweet and all those things. Anything you want to add?
Well, you know, there's the usual physical attraction as well.
Mm-hmm.
Without that, you wouldn't have happened.
That's right. I would not be here.
Did you two bond over literature?
Pretty much. She had never heard of P.G. Woodhouse. But, that we took care of that.
She sure
But
enjoyed it, though.
she was an English major too, so
Mm-hmm.
she was into Keats.
Hmm.
She did her paper on Keats
Right.
poetry, which, you know, you could do worse.
I'm sure she was primed to love PG because she was such an Anglophile.
Yeah.
All right, Wesley, did you want to ask about money and finances?
You can't have any.
That's not the question you wanted to ask.
Oh, okay.
Well, I don't remember. I put that on there. We can maybe skip
You
that.
said, how did you manage money and finances?
I know. Maybe we can skip that one.
Okay.
There are a couple here that are a bit more broad. For example, what's the scariest thing you ever did in your life, or maybe a couple of the scariest things if you can't decide?
What an interesting question.
Or the scariest, or maybe like the most difficult thing that you ever had to do?
Well, probably the scariest thing I ever did was during training for an officer training school was a live fire exercise where you have to get on your stomach and you have a rifle that you have to carry and a pack on your back, and you have to go under this wire, barbed wire, and you have to crawl from one end of this area to another, and while bullets, including tracer bullets, which you can see, I mean, you can see the
Yeah.
And this is live ammunition?
live ammunition.
So you could get killed?
You could get killed if you put your head up.
Jeez Louise.
That's right. And so it's to simulate actual combat. If you are being fired at, you want to keep your ass down and your head down.
Still, I would think they could use blanks. So they don't kill their own soldiers.
No, that's the point of it.
Yeah.
The point of it is to get you used to the fact that there's lethality
Right.
directed at you, and you have to. So that was pretty scary.
Yeah. It is scary.
Did you ever have any big scares with your kids or in your married life where you thought something, might have happened to one of the kids or your wife or something? Or might happen?
Well, I guess the one child who was the most rambunctious is your mother. I thought she had killed herself one day when she was just running around. She was about 2 or 3 years old. She was running around the house, running around that was when we were living on Belfast Street. Running full tilt. And we were sitting at the dining room table, same table
We had at View Street.
that we had at View Street, yeah. And you ran full into that at full speed. Hit your head on the side of that table.
Was it the side
And
or the
went-
corner?
Went down. I mean, you went down. But then you got up. You did this, and you got up on your feet, and you kept running around the house. But I can't believe this. Because I know you must have knocked yourself silly.
Children are resilient. I had a lot of accidents though. I was very accident prone.
Yeah, and then the time that you fell off remember when your grandmother, Lewis, was in town, and we were at someplace swimming, and you went up onto the slide, and you fell off the slide.
Oh, I didn't
And
remember that.
you don't remember that? Well, that was another.
I hit my head?
I don't know what you hit, but you were okay, but it was extremely scary, and your grandmother just was
Scared.
beside herself.
Yeah.
She thought you'd be killed. But anyway. you were
Luckily,
fine.
I was 80% rubber, India rubber. Because I
Apparently.
know I apparently threw myself down. I wanted to see if I could jump down a flight of stairs. Like,
I don't remember that.
that's what Mom told me, and I jumped and and I broke my right arm or I don't remember which. Let's see. I think I broke my left arm in first grade, my right arm in second grade. I had several sets of stitches. Yeah.
Wow.
I was very accident prone. But you had a scare when you had that terrible accident and we had a scare.
Oh yeah, on the bridge.
This was on the other side of the lake, on the other side of the causeway.
Oh, that one, yeah. The accident that paid for our trip to Europe.
Yes. They were turning left. No, the nuns, they were on the road to get on the causeway, and this vanful of nuns was turning left. And
Right in front of us.
mhm.
Yeah. They thought that they had the right of way, but they, oncoming traffic had the right of way.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was difficult. We both wound up in the hospital, and of course, Kate, your mom had a bad knee,
Broken ribs.
broken ribs.
I'll never forget it. We got a call, Jim and Chris and I got a call that you all had been hurt, and we had to go cross the causeway in the middle of the night to go pick you up. And you came back, we took you back in the car, and you didn't go to the hospital right away. I think we were in the hospital.
Well, I was fine. It turned out I was knocked out, and they first thought that I was
Dead.
dead because my blood pressure went down to 0 when the EMTs came, and they thought that I was gone for, but I came right out of it.
You prayed about it. I remember you said, Lord, I think my family needs me. I'm ready to go, but I think my family needs me. I remember you telling me that before you passed out.
I don't remember that at all. Anyway, I remember we were listening to Strauss waltzes
Yeah.
on the tape.
I don't think you were actually listening to them. I think
No, I wasn't. Actually,
The impact turned
the
it on.
impact turned on the cassette player.
Right.
Boy, that's
And all of a sudden
kind
we got Strauss waltzes.
Like bam! Da-da-da-da, dun, 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 dun.
sort of a
Comic.
comic scene.
I know.
Gosh.
And I remember you said that you kind of were gaining consciousness. The first thing you did was turn the tape off, like stop the music. But But anyway, we had to go get you, and I remember lying, sleeping on the couch or on the floor next to Graham on the couch all night because she was in so much pain with her ribs broken.
Yeah.
And taking her to the doctor the next day. But anyway, that was a scary moment for the whole family.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, the insurance company ponied up big time on that, and we were able to all go to Europe.
We did. I was
You were
fresh
there.
off Wheaton in France.
Yes.
I was a junior, and I had done Wheaton in France for my second time. I was an assistant instead of a student, and Nancy and I met you all in Belgium. And then I think she flew home, and we all went to France maybe, ended up in London. Yeah, we had a great time.
We did. Do you remember Rye?
I wasn't there for Rye.
You weren't there for Rye. That's
Right.
right. Okay. Well, anyway, priest holes and things like that. We had all interesting things.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like every little town in England has a hotel called the George. Must have been when George III was king. Everybody named their inns.
That's
after
right,
the
the
king.
George. And they all claimed he'd stayed there, huh?
Maybe he'll leave us alone. Okay.
I think he's getting tired. Why don't you just pick one or two more?
I have to go do some work,
Yeah.
but
Gotcha. Well, I have just a couple of shorter ones here. One is, how would you like the generations after to remember you?
I would like the generations after me to fall in love with Jesus and to know that I'm in love with Jesus. That I was not a perfect person ever. Guarantee you that. I'm a sinner, but through God's grace, I was able to see, number one, that I was a sinner, number two, that I needed the Lord. And I was born again. And a lot of people get the order wrong. They think they have to have faith and then they have to do good deeds and then maybe God will save them.
Mm-hmm.
It's the total wrong order. First thing that has to happen is to realize you're a sinner. The second thing is to have faith that Jesus can save you. And the third thing is you do good works, not because you're trying to be saved, but because you are saved.
Mm-hmm.
Because you've been born again.
Mm-hmm.
And I want everybody to understand that order. That people who feel like they have to make themselves acceptable to God by doing good things, I've got the order all reversed.
Right.
First thing you do is fall on your knees and say, God, have mercy on me.
Mm-hmm.
I am a sinner. And and to understand that Jesus came for that very purpose.
What would you like your funeral to look like? What kind of music
I
would
would
you
like it to be absolutely about Jesus. Not about me at all. Because I don't count. I would like every person in that church, if there is if there's a service of remembrances of it, not talk about me, but to talk about the Lord. How faithful He has been, how lovely He's been. It should be worship. It's not, people's lives, I'm just a drop in the bucket. But Jesus is the whole world. He is he's the glory in this life, and in, of course, obviously in the life to come. He's going to be all the glory and all the praise.
If you could pick 3 songs that you would have at your funeral, what would they be?
Well, now that's going to be rough. One is a song that we sang at your mom's funeral, which is
The Sands of Time.
In Emmanuel's Land?
Emmanuel's Land. In Christ alone. And I don't know. I'd have to think about the third. I'll write them down for you.
Nothing classical or hymn, no hymns.
Well, yeah, that's a hymn.
In Christ Alone?
Sure,
It's
it's
a
a modern
contemporary.
hymn,
Yeah,
but
it's a contemporary hymn. Yeah. All right. Where would you want your funeral to be? Would it be at where y'all have been meeting for Redeemer?
Sure. I love every grandchild who feels like they can join in with the violin, with the
Oh yeah.
cello,
Mm-hmm.
with the piano, with singing, with rejoicing. And understand, I'm happier now than I've ever been in this life,
Mm-hmm.
because when I see him, I will be like him. And that's the desire of my heart, is to be like Jesus, which I can't be completely, but I'm certainly going to be different.
And Mom was wondering where you would like to be buried.
You're going to have my ashes. You can bury me any way you want. You can put me on the next to your mom, which is fine. Or you can put me on the mantelpiece. I don't care. I'm not there. It's not the me.
Right.
All right, thank you.
Okay.